Evil Dead Burn absolutely melted my face. Let's talk a little bit about it.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
I want to be a fighter like you.
Oh, let it burn! Let it burn!
Did you miss me?
You have to shoot them in the head. They always come back.
The boat can leave now. Tell the crew.
Well, sometimes that is better.
Good luck.
After the loss of her husband, Alice, Suela Jacob, seeks solace with her in-laws at their secluded family home. However, it soon becomes a reunion from hell as the Book of the Dead unleashes demonic forces that transform them into Deadites one by one. Evil Dead Burn is the 6th installment in the Evil Dead franchise and the sophomore horror feature from director Sebastian Vianichek. Sam Raimi handpicked the guy to do the next Evil Dead after watching his terrifying spider horror flick Infested. You can currently watch that 2023 horror film over on Shudder. I highly recommend it for those who don't have a strong arachnophobia, of course. Sam Raimi absolutely made the right choice picking Sebastian for this movie because this flick absolutely rips. I would go so far as to say I liked this Evil Dead even better than the last one. Vianichek injects so much of his own personality into this entry by essentially combining 2000's French Extremity with the terrifying gross-out body horror of Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead reimagining from 2013. While Fede's movie will always have my heart and is still my personal favorite from the series, Burn creates an even more crushing atmosphere that's occasionally alleviated with some dark humor. It's the least schlocky Evil Dead, so fans of Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness may not cling to this one, but I think if you're really vibing with the modern Evil Dead space, this movie takes it to another level. This is such a tough review for me to make because Evil Dead 2013 is like my favorite horror sequel of all time. Is this movie better? Oh man, in some regards, yes. Just like the aforementioned 4th installment, Evil Dead Burn effectively sets up a depressing, nightmarish situation before the Kandarian demons even start racing at us in glorious Raimi cam. This family is beyond dysfunctional and has gone into straight up abusive and manipulative territory from a variety of angles. I think it perfectly dissects how the character of Will turned into the douchebag he became without him really being on screen that much. There's this really subtle thing that happens within the first 20 minutes of the movie where you have Will dog whistle at Alice to come here. Alice doesn't really appreciate him treating her like a pet. It immediately shows this lack of respect in this crumbling relationship. Now fast forward a couple more minutes into the movie and we get to meet Edgar, Will's father, and his introductory shot is him whistling for the dog to come over to him. That is so good because it immediately tells me that Will learned these horrible traits from his father. A lesser movie, like many of them that have come out this year, would just explain all of that to you through dialogue. And that's fucking boring. So subtle, so good. You can see so much maturity from Sebastian moving from his first feature to the second. I'm shocked that this is his second movie. There's also some killer stuff later on into the flick with both Susan and Joseph, but that would be getting into some spoilery territory. There are a lot of brutal moments in this flick, but one of my favorite scenes of the entire film is just a simple kiss. If you know, you know. Don't worry though, you don't have to wait too long for the horror to begin because it's pretty goddamn immediate from the opening scene. I think this opening does a great job at showcasing the nightmare you're about to witness while also having a fun little connection to Evil Dead Rise. Truly the greatest thing about Evil Dead Burn as a whole is its pacing. It never feels too lacking in scares, levity, or good character work, and that's a combination of great directing, writing, and editing here that makes this flow the absolute best of the 6 films hands down. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but everything is perfectly placed in this film. I never felt disengaged with this movie with how consistent and efficient its runtime really is. I will admit there are certainly some gaps in the logic of this movie, but it's nowhere near as ridiculous as some of the previous entries. Let's not forget that every single Sam Raimi Evil Dead sequel had to basically retcon the entire previous film to make the current story work. This franchise has always been messy in those regards, so I really can't justify a criticism here. Outside of a funny scene that instantly switches from day to night in a matter of seconds, the biggest thing I think folks might take issue with is the Deadites having a motivation that they only occasionally stay focused on. Again, no spoilers, but there are moments where the Deadites are just actively making their missions so much more difficult. I just don't think this is that big of a deal though. They do have a goal this time around, which is a little different than previous entries, but they are still the embodiment of chaos and evil. The Deadites have never been the most focused demons in the history of horror, and I don't think it would make for a very fun Evil Dead flick if they were. You're able to find so many unique standout moments throughout this film because of that. I mean, drinking a hot fucking candle is insane. There's also some messy lore stuff here too, which I'm sure some other critics are gonna point out, but it's not that big of a deal, relax. Why would Evil Dead 6 try to be perfectly logical with all of those things when none of the other films are? There is specifically an item in this movie that does not look like the same item in previous movies, and I know so many fans are gonna be like, well, that thing sucks, that's not the this, that, or whatever. I'm trying so hard to tiptoe around spoilers here. Here's something we can talk about that's really not that big of a deal. There's a picture of Bruce Campbell in what is likely just a cameo appearance here. It wouldn't make any sense for Ash to be connected to this family though, based on what we know. It's just a cameo, relax. Look out for it though, because it is kind of cool. Anyways, we're here for the blood, the guts, the terror, and the fun badass character moments. This movie is in no short supply of that. Speaking of which, there are some really nasty kills in this movie that are only enhanced by the way this flick is shot. There's these gorgeous still wides that are juxtaposed by these violent freehand action shots that make the killing feel even more immersive, like you're actually standing in the scene while this is happening. 2026 is the year for head smashes, man, because there's a scene in this that rivals the brick scene in Obsession. I also want to note that this movie is so French, and I think that's going to blindside some people if you're not expecting that. There are some critics already saying that this takes them out of the movie, but man, I just strongly disagree with that. The injection of personality from the director is what makes this sequel worth watching, in my opinion. I might not be the biggest fan of French rap or some of the sillier shots during the nightclub sequence, but these things embody the type of horror that this movie is clearly celebrating. Evil Dead Burn would pair so nicely with something like High Tension or Inside. If you haven't seen a lot of French Extremity stuff, I highly recommend it, maybe even before you go into this one, so that you know what to expect. Personally, I'm just glad that this one didn't feel the need to fit into a box. It is still an Evil Dead film at the end of the day, but it's also very much its own thing too. That's what makes Evil Dead my absolute favorite horror franchise. There is so much more I could say about Evil Dead Burn, but I just don't want to get into spoiler territory. Please go see this movie before you know anything about it. The marketing is already giving way too much away about this one. Don't worry though, next week I plan on making all kinds of spoilery content on Evil Dead Burn. I'll give you guys the weekend to check it out. I'm gonna be ranking the entire franchise, including all 6 movies and the TV show, as well as breaking down the 2 post-credits scenes. Which, by the way, make sure to stay all the way until after the credits roll. That second post-credits scene raises some major questions. I'm sure it is somehow leading into Evil Dead Wrath, which releases in 2028. And before you guys even ask, of course I'm making a video on all that. Next week is Evil Dead week, baby. We're just gonna be making Evil Dead videos like pretty much the entire time. Before we wrap up today's video, please make sure to like it and subscribe to this page for more updates on the most exciting horror projects. Also, the best way to support this channel is by becoming a patron on Patreon. Over there, you can find a ton of bonus content like reactions to various horror TV shows and movies. We're currently watching Dexter and Hannibal, with multiple episodes going up there a week. No, what? Check it out by clicking on the link in the description below. One final plug and I'll shut the heck up. Please make sure to also check out my film channel, Human Egg Productions, where we're currently posting horror and comedy short films. If you like slashers especially, check out the gory short I wrote and directed called Chicken Man. Thank you to everyone who supports all of my pages. Are you guys excited for Evil Dead Burn, or have you already seen it? Do you have thoughts? Let me know all those thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.